We are expecting tomorrow another massive protest against Israel on the streets of London. And I think that really draws into focus the gulf between the government's very strong position backing up Israel and then certainly a sizable minority, let's say, who are passionately and vocally against Israel. And I think that's not necessarily something which is easy to explain because after the horrific visions that everybody saw on the 7th of October in the massacre, it's difficult to understand how even the most dyed-in-the-wool supporters of the Palestinian cause could pick that moment to be protesting so passionately against Israel defending itself. But that is the position that Rishi Sunak finds himself in being a passionate and strong supporter of Israel. He perhaps has the benefit of knowing he's very unlikely to win the next general election next year. And maybe that's giving him the sense that he can actually stand up for what he perhaps believes in here without too much fear of what it might do to him at the polls, because either it's going to strengthen his core, who will be pleased that he's behaving this way, or it's not going to do any more damage than he was going to suffer anyway.
Right. Now, I do also want to talk a little about British media, and I have to, I think, Jonathan, particularly the BBC. We reporting here, citing a European source saying, a European intelligence source, the casualties from that explosion in the hospital, which Israel presented strong evidence that it was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket misfire. The actual casualties may be somewhere between 10, maybe up to 50, nowhere near the 500, 400 that was cited. A lot of criticism, at least coming here from Israel, to the BBC in particular, particularly some of its editorial policies.
Yes, I mean, that story, I suppose, is a textbook case of what seems to happen in terms of coverage, especially here in Great Britain, but across the world generally, presented with something that looks very telegenic, a hospital destroyed, masses of casualties, catastrophic deaths. Those were the reports that were put out in the beginning because that's what the Palestinian Health Authority said, of course, controlled by Hamas. Too many, including the BBC, seemed unquestioningly to accept that. Of course, looked at after not very long with the footage that started to come out, it looked like, well, more of an explosion or a fire in a car park outside a hospital, very small crater. Quite hard to understand how such a small hospital with an explosion outside it could have had quite so many deaths. And of course, all the people more used to covering those stories more critically were not surprised when broadcasters had got it wrong. It's still not considered a settled case here. People aren't necessarily certain they know what happened. But as you say, I think some of the early reports, and even some of the ones lingering now, rather stubbornly and pig-headedly on the part of some broadcasters and media outlets, are still reporting this incorrectly, and time will tell. But as you know, the damage is done early on, and the effect that those sorts of reports had around the world, especially in the Middle East region, have been very difficult, with even that quadrilateral meeting for Joe Biden cancelled because of those early reports. The BBC still coming under a lot of criticism for refusing to refer to Hamas as terrorists, even though Hamas is a prescribed terror group within the UK, so it's a legal position that would be easy to defend. They say that they try not to take sides in disputes around the world and try not to use the word terrorism except reporting it as somebody else's judgment. Of course, they've broken that rule so many times, including recently with the attack that happened in Brussels, and they went back and corrected that rather than correcting their failure to use the word in terms of Hamas.